right, guys, welcome to a YouTube edition of Brotherly Love in the District. And this is going to be something we're going to start doing. I'm actually on week 5 right now, but this is something we're going to start doing each week. We're going to end up turning it into a stream ultimately, but we're just going to kind of go through all the games in the NFL and predict who we think will win, just to try to add something different to our whole setup here. So this is something, it's going to be only on YouTube. We're going to start streaming it soon, and this is going to be coming out middle of the week, like Wednesday-ish timeframe, Wednesday, Thursday, before the Thursday night games. So that's going to be something that I'm definitely looking forward to. Just adding a little bit of a more competition factor to it, because obviously with Jacob and I being different in favorite teams, this adds a little bit to it. So let's start off with Thursday night football. The Dolphins at the Bengals. This is an interesting matchup because the Dolphins look good this season.
Yeah, the Dolphins are doing significantly better than I thought they would. I can fully say I was wrong about their entire team, and I was wrong about Tua. And it looks like his injury wasn't concussion protocol, so he's probably going to be good to go on Thursday night. So I'm gonna go with the Dolphins because I still think the Bengals offensive line has questions.
I I'm actually, so even with Tua, I think the Dolphins do look better. Their defense has stepped up. They basically shut down the Bills in that game. They were able to hold the Ravens in that huge comeback. And I'm gonna pull up who they played in week 1 because I don't really remember. But
They
I
played
mean,
the
Dolphins,
Patriots.
they played the Patriots, who they only held to 7 points. So I mean, they're not doing too terrible this season. Their defense looks good. I'm still not a full believer in Tua, aside from, like, he had that big game against the Ravens where he threw for almost 500 yards, but I'm still not that big of a believer. And taking the fact that he's also nursing an injury, I'm going with the Bengals in this one. It's in Cincy too on Thursday night. I just think the Bengals need, like, they have been struggling. They
Yeah,
lost to Cooper Rush.
yeah.
They
Still
just
need
got
to
their
find a
first win
footing.
against the Jets. I think this is a game that is kind of a must win for them. And I think that it's going to go in their favor, especially in Cincy. Yeah, I'd still trust in Joe Burrow. Uh, Sunday in London, I believe it's in London, Vikings and the Saints. So technically the Saints are the home team, but
Yeah.
obviously in London, it doesn't really matter. This is another interesting one because the Saints are missing Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry. They both left the game yesterday with injuries. So Chris Olave looks like he's going to be stepping up. Now, they said this morning that Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry aren't in that much trouble with injuries. Like, they shouldn't be out too long. But I mean, still, that's a huge loss to their wide receiver core.
Yeah, I don't think the Saints are really that great of a team anymore. I think they've started to show how much they miss Sean Payton. And I still think the Vikings are a decent team, even though they didn't really have a good showing against you guys. So I'm gonna go with the Vikings.
I'm also taking the Vikings in this one just because, I mean, their secondary is decent, but they lost CJ Gardner-Johnson, obviously, to the Eagles. So really the only thing they have left there is Marshawn Lattimore at corner. So I feel like the wide receivers could have a bit of a field day in London against the Saints. And then, like you said, the Saints just aren't the same team without Sean Payton. Their wide receivers are hurting. Jameis Winston is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. This is kind of a side note, but today I'm scrolling through my waiver wires. Adam Thielen, in I think it was a 12-man league, is just chilling on the bet on the waivers, and I'm like, yeah, I'll pick him up. Thank you very much. But yeah, I'm taking Minnesota in this one. All right, Seattle at Detroit.
I have Detroit winning. That they've proven every
Detroit
single
looks
week of the season
good.
so far that their offense is pretty exciting. And I just don't think the Seahawks are going to be good enough to outscore them. So I have the Lions.
I feel like the Seahawks got lucky in that week 1 game against Denver just because Nathaniel Hackett is struggling as the
Yeah.
Denver coach.
Yeah. And
He's
I just don't think Denver's that great of a team,
Yeah,
at
Denver
least
definitely
right
does
now.
not look as good as they should. And then in week 2, they got blown out by the 49ers. Then in week 3, who did the Seahawks just play? The Falcons. That was a close game, but Falcons aren't really a good team.
They
But
did win though.
yeah, the Seahawks, I don't really like their team right now. Poor DK Metcalf is going to be wasting away his career there, right? As it looks at right now. Geno Smith is not the future, but like you said, that Lions offense looks electric and exciting. Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre
Swift.
Swift, yes, TJ Hawkinson. I mean, that's a good offense, and I think their defense is a little bit underrated too.
It's nothing special, but it's certainly not. It shouldn't be considered one of the worst.
Yeah, I agree. They're kind of middle of the pack. So, I mean, I feel like they could hold their own. I mean, they kept them in the game with the Vikings. I feel like the Vikings definitely uh could have run it up on them, but Jeff Okuda actually looks decent. He held Devontae Smith to 0 yards, and I believe he only gave up 1 reception in each of the last 2 weeks in coverage against like the top receivers. So Jeff Okuda looks pretty decent this season after struggling with injuries up until this point. So yeah, I'm going with Detroit in that one at Ford Field. That place is rocking this season. So yeah, I think Detroit will win that one. The Jets and the Steelers. I think this one is going to be a surprise to you because
Well, you're going to pick the Jets.
yeah,
I do think the Jets are a decent young team. They look kind of exciting, but I still have the Steelers mainly because I think their defense is looking for a way to get back, if that makes any sense. And I think that the Steelers will be able to impose their will defensively, and so I have the Steelers. But if the Jets were to win, it wouldn't be too much of a surprise to me.
I'm really confused though because Zach Wilson he's still out and I don't
Yeah.
entirely know why.
Um, didn't he have like an ankle thing week one,
I know he got
like
hurt in the
preseason?
preseason. He got hurt in the preseason against the Eagles, but they said he'd only be out for a little bit. There was talks of him being back by week 1, and then he didn't come back, obviously. Joe Flacco's been starting. I mean, Joe Flacco's been holding his own back there, but the yeah, I mean, I think with Zach Wilson, that offense is gonna skyrocket with Brees Hall, Michael Carter, two decent young running backs, and then Garrett Wilson looks good. He looked good, especially against the Browns, but I believe he got the hat trick against the Browns. But yeah, that looks like a decent young offense, and the Steelers so far have just been struggling. Like I don't like their team this year, and
I
I've been
don't
saying
like, yeah, it's their defense didn't really do that great against the Browns, and their offense stinks pretty much because I think part of it's down to their offensive coordinator and the fact that they just can't really get a lot going with Mitch Trubisky. So I am worried about them, but I still have to take them over the Jets.
all right. So actually, I saw it real quick before we move on. Mike Tomlin, they said that he made some adjustments to his lineup and all that, and it's still he hasn't changed his quarterback. He's still going with Mitch Trubisky. So I'm curious to see how much longer he lasts, especially if they keep on losing.
Yeah.
Uh, so Bears and Giants. This one seems like it should be a terrible game, but I feel like the Giants are surprising everyone this season.
Yeah, I have them winning. They did, like, they looked okay last night in stretches against the Cowboys. I'm they weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be. And depending on how things turn out, I think you were right. If we finish below them, I don't think I'll be overly surprised. Um, but yeah, I have them winning against the Bears. I just think that Saquon Barkley is going to have a very good game against the Bears defense.
Now, I said in our first video when we did our tier list that I thought the Bears were going to be the worst team in the NFL. They're 2-1 right now. Granted, they
Yeah.
did only just beat the Texans, and the Packers mopped the floor with them. And they barely beat the 49ers in a monsoon. So it's not like their wins have been,
Pretty.
really great wins. They barely beat Houston. So I still don't think they're a great team. Like you said, the Giants are just kind of surprising everyone this season. Saquon Barkley has made it past week 3. Little round
Yeah,
of
that's a
applause.
surprise.
And a little round of applause for the Giants offensive line for letting Saquon make it past week 3.
I mean,
But
they're
yeah,
still not great because if you look at their like their pass rush defense is pretty awful. But I mean, yeah, they're improving a little bit in terms of running.
the I want to look at I feel like the Giants, like their health is what's helping them ultimately right now.
Yeah,
They definitely, they haven't had many injuries, and like I said at the beginning of the season, they have a solid 22. But once you get beyond that and they get into their depth,
it's
that's
bad.
scary
Yeah.
for Giants fans. So, yeah, I'd have the Giants winning this one too. I mean, I feel like they should win this one easily, especially in East Rutherford. But that's one that I feel like should be easy, but probably won't be. Uh,
Yeah.
AFC South matchup: Colts in the Titans. Titans
Battle
visiting
of the
Indy.
disappointing teams.
Yeah, wow. The Colts have surprised me so much this
They
season.
did beat the Chiefs, but they're still not looking all that
And
well.
I feel like that Chiefs win was just kind of like we need to stop losing win. Like it wasn't a
Yeah,
I don't know if
I see what
really
you
what I'm
mean.
trying to say makes sense, but I feel like it wasn't a natural win. It was more of a let's get off this losing train and win a game. And Tennessee, I mean, I honestly, I can't even say I'm surprised at how bad they've been this season because without AJ Brown, their offense is totally one dimensional. You
Yeah,
know they're
and
going to Derrick Henry.
yeah, people are picking up on that. I have the Colts winning because I think that Chiefs win is going to be a big confidence boost. I know the Titans did just beat the Raiders, but I think the Colts like overall have a better team and are a little more dynamic than the Titans are.
I'm uh I don't want career. I just want this season. So I'm looking up the I know Damian Hilliard or Dontrell Hilliard for the Titans had a big receiving game in week 1. Like their wide receivers are terrible. And like I said, their offense is just one dimensional. I don't like the Titans. I think the Colts are going to bounce back even after that Chiefs win. So I think I'm going to take the Colts in this one. I feel like they need to bounce back off the those first 2 losses. The Jacksonville loss was depressing. They shouldn't have got swept out like that. Uh, they had a big win against Kansas City. I'm going to take them again. I feel like Matt Ryan, yes, he's not the future, obviously, since he's old, but he is a solid quarterback for right now. And the Colts really need to look into a future quarterback for them. They can't keep on doing this 1 year, one quarterback.
Yeah,
Play.
a revolving door of
Who
quarterbacks.
who'd you have winning again?
Colts.
All right. That's another one where we both have the same one. But yeah, I feel like Indy should win that one. And I feel like Jonathan Taylor should have a big game too against the
Yeah, I feel like he should definitely go off this game.
all right, going on to the Chargers at the Texans.
The Chargers
Chargers,
had a horrible
oh my,
game this past
yeah,
week, but
that
this
was
is a game they
terrible.
should win because the Texans are my worst team in the league, at least I think. So I have the Chargers winning, but yeah, I don't know what happened against the Jags, but they really need to step things up.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Okay, the Jags look like a decent offense this season. All right. So also real quick, just going back to that Titans Colts game, Dontrell Hilliard, their backup running back, is number 3 in receiving yards right now. Robert Woods and Treylon Burks are the first 2. But uh the the Chargers are coming off of a huge loss. And don't get me wrong, the Jack the Jaguars don't look like a terrible team this season. I feel like Trevor Lawrence is actually making a little bit of a step in the right direction, but still, your offense that should be one of the most potent offenses in the NFL should not get shut down by the Jaguars defense like that. I mean, And your defense, like I think the Chargers have one of the best defenses in the league, and they shouldn't have let the Jaguars run all over them like that. What was the final score of that game? 38-10. Yeah, you shouldn't have the Jaguars almost putting 40 on you. So
No, you just can't have that.
I feel bad, honestly, for the Texans in this game because I feel like the Texans are gonna get just absolutely rocked.
Yeah,
This
I
is
think the
one where it's like
Chargers are looking for a confidence
revenge
booster.
tour. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Chargers are coming in after getting absolutely blown out of the water, and I would not want to be Houston in this case.
no.
All right, so next, Cleveland at Atlanta.
I have the Browns. I think I mean we saw against the Steelers, Jacoby Brissett can be decent and enough for the offense, and I just think the Falcons are underwhelming. I know they did just win, but I still think they're an underwhelming team, and I think the Browns are overall better built. I don't know what's going to happen with Miles Garrett though. He did have an
Yeah, he did
accident,
just get in
but
a car accident.
he didn't like sustain any major injuries, so he's probably game time. But I still have the Browns.
I'm gonna go with a surprising pick here and take the Falcons. I know taking the Falcons isn't exactly the sexiest pick, but I mean Marcus Mariota hasn't been playing terribly, so that's a start. Drake London, who I thought was going to be the biggest bust of this draft, he also doesn't look terrible. Cordero Patterson still putting up numbers at running back. They almost came back and beat the Rams in week 2. They got a big win against Seattle in week 1 or week 3, excuse me. And they also still have Kyle Pitts. They barely lost to the Saints in a shootout, 27 to
Yeah,
26 in week 1. This I feel like the Falcons are a very what's the word I'm looking for? It's like they're honestly like glitter in these games. Like it's like you think they're gone, and then all of a sudden it's like, what are you still doing
find
here?
it.
Oh
You
yeah,
find it
go what?
again.
You accidentally like they find themselves. So I feel like, especially after that, the Browns showed that they took the foot off the gas in the week 2 matchup against the Jets, where the Jets scored 2 touchdowns in the final 2 minutes to win the game. I'm taking the Falcons in this one. I know it's not the greatest pick, but I really think Atlanta has a shot to win this one, and I think they're surprising people. I know that you don't get on your records, games you lose by 3 or less, but
Yeah,
they've lost some really close games. It's the same way that Detroit was last season. Detroit fought and just sometimes just came up a little short. So I'm taking the Falcons in this one. All right. So next, the Commanders at the Cowboys. Now, we're gonna go deeper into this in this week's regular podcast.
yeah.
So Jacob has a whole rant that he's gonna talk about, but
Yeah,
if you guys really want to hear the in-depth about this, listen to the actual podcast and
yeah,
we'll
that should
talk
be
about that.
coming out a few days later. I
But
have
just a little scratch of the surface. Tell us what you're thinking.
the Cowboys are going to win this game. If we look at what
Wow.
happened last week, the Eagles had 9 sacks. Yes, 9, 6 were in the first half, and the Cowboys, I'm pretty sure they lead the league in sacks. I mean, that should spell it out right there. Simple as that.
Wow. Okay. So I'm taking the Commanders in this one because okay, so
It's a game we should win, but we won't.
it's a game you
We're going
should
to
win.
come in
Yes.
unprepared again.
Cooper Rush, first off, looking like an MVP candidate.
I wouldn't go that far, but
No, but
looking like he's
Cooper
looking
Rush
like
is
a very good game manager.
yeah, he's a decent backup quarterback. But
Yeah.
I mean, they still like CeeDee Lamb is their only receiver right now.
Hmm.
Benjamin St. Juste, he played decently in the last
Yeah,
game
I
against
mean,
the Eagles. The
putting him to the
secondary,
outside was the right thing to do.
I think the Eagles against the Commanders just kind of wore down their defense. I think the Eagles had a really good game plan. They mixed in the run and the pass. The Cowboys don't have a deep shot like the Eagles do. The Eagles played their deep shots really well. I think everyone, maybe Quez Watkins didn't get one, but I know they threw one to him. I know Devontae Smith had a deep catch. AJ Brown had a deep catch. They don't have that ability with any of their receivers. CeeDee Lamb is a route runner. He is not a deep guy. So I feel like you're a little bit safer over the top. I still don't think your corners are terrible. It will come down to your offensive line and how Micah Parsons does against them. I think
Yeah,
he's going
but
to have a field day.
I just think their linebackers, Micah Parsons and Leighton Vander Esch, are going to have an amazing game against us. Obviously I'm going to go more in depth into this next week. I mean, and the thing is, for me, I don't blame it on Carson Wentz. Like, yes,
he didn't play terrible. He only has 3 interceptions, but how much you guys have been throwing it? Not terrible.
Yeah, he's played good. Like, okay, he didn't have a great game last game, and I think his pocket presence could have been significantly better, but you cannot expect to have a functioning offense and to win football games giving up 9 sacks. It's stupid to think that you can do anything offensively. And the people are saying, oh, we should bring in Howe. I think you're completely missing the point.
Yeah. Carson Wentz is not playing bad. It's not his fault.
He's not the problem. Yes, he has a bad his pocket presence on that could have been a lot better, but people saying that Heineke or Howe can do better, I think are completely missing the points. They will never be able to make the throws that Carson Wentz can make. Simple. They will never be able to do that at this current moment.
So I think Washington is going to bounce back on this one. The Cowboys, I just don't believe in them. Like, as a whole, I don't believe in Cooper Rush. He's not their answer.
I don't believe in our coaching staff.
The next one, on our side, the return of Dougie Fresh to Philadelphia.
Yeah, the Jags have a great offense, but if we're being honest, this is a game the Eagles need to win.
This is a game the Eagles will win. Again, this is another one that we'll go more in depth on. I'm having the Eagles win this one because I don't believe in the Jaguars. I think Washington has a far better defense than Jacksonville. And you saw the way that the Eagles moved the ball up and down the field at will against the Commanders. I don't see Jacksonville being able to stop it.
No.
It's going to be interesting because Jacksonville has shown their offense is pretty good. So I'm interested to see how the Eagles defense does against them. But so all the teams they've faced, you have Washington. Terry McLaurin, he had a decent game. Wasn't terrible, wasn't great. He had a decent game. Justin Jefferson shut down. And in week 1, the Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown had a good game, but he was shut down in the first half. The second half is when he really turned it on and turned it up. The Jacksonville doesn't really have that one receiver like those 3 teams do. So I think it's going to be a way easier game for the secondary of the Eagles. But I think the Eagles one should win this one easily. Maybe the Jaguars offense gives the defense a little trouble, but I really don't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't either. I just think this is a game they should win, and they're a significantly better team than the Jags.
And I've noticed recently a lot of people are starting to hop off the Philadelphia train, and I don't know, like at the beginning of the season, like so at the beginning of the season, everyone was saying like, the Eagles offense looks good. It all depends on Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has come out. He's played well. And everyone's like, oh, they haven't played anybody. The Vikings are a decent team. Detroit is proving that they're a decent team. And the Commanders, I would say.
We have a decent roster. Yeah. I
just say they didn't play well.
Yeah, we didn't play well. And I think there's problems with our coaching right now. So,
don't get me wrong.
If we look at our offense, at the end of the game, we were able to move the ball over the middle of the field, but we should have given you more problems if we look at our depth, and we just didn't. You were able to game plan the correct way, and you were able to get a very early lead, and at that point you could coast.
The point is, like, a lot of people were saying, oh, the Eagles could be a good team, and now they're starting to back off. I think, like, don't get me wrong, those 3 teams aren't the hardest teams in the NFL, but they also aren't the worst teams in the NFL. Like, if the Eagles had beaten the Bears, the Seahawks, and I don't know, the Texans, then I would agree with you. But it's not those teams. Like Detroit is a team that plays hard, especially coming out of this offseason where they made a ton of upgrades. They had they had the hard knocks that riled their fans up. Like these teams aren't terrible, but I've noticed a lot of people being like, oh, whatever. It's just Detroit and it's just Washington. Like, I'm interested to see what'll happen because the Eagles have I believe, the third easiest schedule in the NFL. So it's the same one when they won the Super Bowl, which I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl this year, but everyone was like, oh, the Eagles haven't played anyone. But I mean, they had an easier schedule, but they still won the Super Bowl. So at the end of the day, as long as they get into the playoffs is what matters. So
Yeah.
I'm just interested to see how people react later in the season. Moving on, the Bills and the Ravens. Like I said, Bills struggled against the Dolphins.
Yeah, and I still think the Bills are a great team, but I'm actually going to go with a surprise here. I think the Ravens are going to win it.
Wow, really?
Yeah, Lamar Jackson has looked good in his last two starts, and I just think he's going to prove some problems for the Bills defense. And I think
The Bills are missing Micah Hyde. They're missing Micah Hyde right now. I need stats. I still think the Bills offense is a good team. You know, I'm not that worried about it. I don't
I'm not
know
saying
what
they're not. I just think that there's obviously going to be upsets throughout the season, and I think this is going to be one of those upsets.
I'm interested to see what happens in like for the Bills offense. I don't know how Stephon Diggs got shut down the way he did, but he was quiet. Yeah, I mean, especially coming off of a week where he had three touchdowns, I believe, and over 100 receiving yards. The Ravens have a decent secondary. The more I think about it, this is going to be a good game. With Micah Parsons out, or Micah Hyde out, that's a big loss for the Bills. You know, that really strong safety tandem. But I like it comes down to I like the Bills offense more than I like the Ravens offense to score points. So I'm taking the Bills over the Ravens here. Josh Allen, I still think is better than Lamar.
I do too, but I just think it's going to be an upset.
It's going to be a good game. I think this is one that like I'm going to want to pay attention to, but it's going to be an interesting one. Going to the Cardinals in Carolina. Cardinals are another team that
I'm gonna have another upset in this one. I think the Panthers are going to win it. The Cardinals really haven't impressed me this season.
The Cardinals haven't impressed me either. Who did they win this past week? They lost to the Rams 20-12.
Yeah.
I think okay, so they lost week 1. They got killed by the Chiefs. Week 2,
that was that weird game against the Raiders where they won.
Yeah, that was an amazing game. That was a really fun game to watch. Week 3, they just barely lose to the Rams by 8. I really haven't liked the Panthers this season. What did the Panthers do last week? They beat the Saints. I don't think that really changes anything. Kyler Murray, you got to respect the angry toddler. I mean, that man has a way of moving around the pocket that I don't think we've ever seen. So maybe except for Patrick Mahomes on occasion, but Kyler Murray does it every play, and I like the Cardinals in this one against the Panthers. And I mean, the Cardinals defense, they're not doing too shabby. Only 20 points for the Rams.
Only 44 against the Chiefs.
Okay, that was week 1. We've talked about how I feel about week 1, but week 2 against the Raiders, the Raiders stopped scoring. I don't know if they took their foot off the gas or what, but the
Raiders haven't really been doing all that great this season, though.
Yeah, they're struggling too, which will lead into the next one against the Broncos. This one is I'm taking the Raiders on this because I hate the Broncos team this season. And
the Broncos don't impress me. They scored
Nathaniel Hackett is struggling.
Yeah, they scored 11 points, and one of our friends in our fantasy league is a Broncos fan. He was excited that they won, but I mean, I still think this team had a delusion of grandeur, and I think it's kind of showing because their team really isn't impressing at
Yeah,
all.
no,
They scored
Russell,
11 points.
have they
Did you see
scored?
the quote Peyton Manning had about Russell Wilson?
No.
He said maybe they should have paid the punter that 235 million because that's what they mostly did in that game.
All right. 11, 16. I don't think they've scored over 20 points this season. Nope.
No,
16, 16, and 11. Their offense is struggling.
their coaching has made
Yeah,
some.
the coaching is terrible.
It's
I mean,
bad. The timeout incident in week 1, that was
which
really
they
bad.
had the same problem in week 2 against the
Yeah.
Texans. I mean, they've been struggling. So yeah, I
And
like the Raiders here.
I think the Raiders are a little pissed, especially Devontae Adams. So I think they're going to win this game.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening to the Broncos, but I don't like it. Patriots and the Packers. Now, Mac Jones could be
Is
out this game.
Yeah, it's a significant. They said it's a significant high ankle sprain. Even if he was in the game, I would have picked the Packers. But
Oh yeah, I think the Packers should wipe the floor with the Patriots
yeah,
in Green Bay
yeah.
with
But
without
who's
Mac
going to be
Jones.
who's going
Forget
to
about
be the Patriots starter though? Who's their back? Is it still Brandon Hoyer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got asked how I feel about Hoyer being the backup, and I go, I mean, just give some random quarterback to Bill Belichick, and he's gonna make it work no matter what. So
He did with Matt Castle.
I was gonna say he did it with Matt Castle.
Him and Josh McDaniel made Matt Castle like an $80 million quarterback.
Yeah, so I mean, Bill Belichick has a special way of making.
Well, because the offense is pretty simple. I mean, hasn't really been.
Yeah, they keep it simple and don't.
Yeah, really and it works most of the time.
But yeah, I think the Packers just had that rough week 1, and now they're back on track. Especially after a big win against the Bucks.
Yeah.
Which leading into that, Bucks coming off of a tough loss against Green Bay.
I have
playing the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I have the Chiefs completely outscoring the Bucks.
This is Super Bowl 54 rematch?
Yeah, I think the Bucks, I mean, we haven't really seen them play all that well this season, and
they're getting Mike Evans back.
Yeah, they are getting Mike Evans back, but their team still hasn't impressed me. They haven't really been able to get their offense going, even against that.
Their offensive line is struggling too.
Yeah, and I think Brady has maybe taken a step back, and he obviously has personal issues that I think are distracting him.
Yes.
So I have the Chiefs winning this.
I have the Chiefs in this one too. You can never count out Big Red against anyone.
You can, and you can also never count out Tom Brady, because I mean, I don't know how many times fans have said this and counted him out, and then he somehow makes a miraculous comeback and shuts up the fans. But I still think the Chiefs are the significantly better team.
Yeah.
Even despite their loss to the Colts last week.
And that's where they're coming back hungry. I mean, the Colts looked like a terrible team, and the Chiefs came out and lost to them. So now they're like, whoa, what just happened to us? Because they didn't score many points either, did they? Yeah, no. 20-17. That's a low scoring game for them. And on Monday Night Football, an NFC West matchup, Rams and 49ers. The 49ers caused some problems for the Rams last season.
Yeah, and I think the Rams have looked a little disappointing this season. I mean, Matthew Stafford is not that great. They almost blew the 28-3 lead against the Falcons. I have the 49ers winning this, even though Jimmy Garoppolo did a Dan Orlovsky in the previous game. Well, actually, wait. I need to look up Deebo Samuel's injury, because this may change depending on what his injury is.
I'm taking the Rams in this one just because, I mean,
I may change.
I think Jalen Ramsey still the best corner in the NFL. Did you see where he said after the week 1 game against who did they play? The Bills.
The Rams?
No, yeah, the Rams played the Bills, and Stephon Diggs went off, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, Jalen Ramsey is terrible. He's washed up and he's bad." And he came out
afterwards tweeting sermons.
He's like, "If you guys think that was my worst game, then that's nothing. He's like, I've played far worse. So I like Jalen Ramsey's mindset, and I think that really helps him because he plays with a swagger. So even if Debo Samuel's healthy,
He is.
okay, so even with Debo Samuel healthy, I'd still like Jalen Ramsey over Debo Samuel as much as I love Debo Samuel as a player. Jimmy G struggles as a passer. I mean, they love handing the ball off. They focus on that front line, but I just think the Rams are still the better team if you look at it as a whole. I mean, the 49ers also lost a lot in the secondary.
Well,
Jaquiski
and
Tartt's gone.
they just lost Trent Williams, so I'm gonna change my pick. I think the Rams are gonna win. I think Aaron Donald especially is gonna have a big game because the Rams, they don't have their all pro left tackle who's the best in the league. And obviously their offense is still in question. So I'm gonna go with the Rams.
All right. So that's gonna wrap it up. Next week we'll go over these picks that we had, and it should be ready to be a stream by next week. So we'll go over those picks from last week going into this week. And like I said, so look forward to this every week. This is gonna be a YouTube thing only. So keep that in mind. You guys can listen to our actual podcast at Brotherly Love in the District on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you guys get your podcasts. Can rate our stuff over there, rate and review it. You can follow our Instagram at BL in the DC, where you can DM us questions and comments. You can email us questions at blinthedc@gmail.com. You can follow our TikTok at BL in the DC. And with that, that's all we have. So we will see you guys later this week.